Say they are them that keep the commandments, cause them have the right to the tree of life and can go through the gate into the city. Cause without them a dog.
Thy kingdom come is told Meg, so obey the Mosaic, nigga, that's great. Like the captivity when holy Moses stole the locust, scoliosis, get back crazy. Christ the living water, free the wave, will behave. I need a slave, Mr. Passways. He just laughed and said, nigga, it ain't over till then seen a higher choir full of fat ladies. Her Mashiach birth was perfect, he don't act shady. Spirit dope from the womb like a crack baby. We Christ followers, let America meet the black Navy. And watch this privileged Christian cracker like black slaves. Israelites, bitch, we humongous. Wise Q and Q the cucumber. I prep twice, my mind 2 bunkers. Voice of choice to the newcomers. My Micah Myers, I need blue jumpers. 300 kosher soldiers, Leonidas. Awards ready, Giddy and Titus. No being nice, a knife to Dionysus. My law heathens, I quit being biased. The key to tree of life is being pious.
You loudmouth bitches barking at the dog whisperer. You will catch these paws in the name of the living word. I don't pump fake, I'm a pivot around this perimeter. They bite the jab step, whole time I'm checking your temperature. I can minister this literature in a verse into integers. All the babes in the truth weaned off the milk, get a quench of thirst. We are holy people, that's set apart like a room full of introverts. I guarantee you have never heard that up in your church. You see this woolly hair, plus my feet the color of brass. I'm just here to prophesy, my foot going up your ass. I'm smart, while others chuckle, I'm glad I can make you laugh. Come on and sign a death row, all I need is your autograph. I got a stick in my hand like I'm ready to play fetch. You brag about your hands, but there's nothing you can't catch. I'm a landlord, no dog trying this complex. Been stepping on shit, can't keep my feet off next.
Yeah man, tell them boy I said, yo, you know hear me chain? Yo, hold my glasses, let me talk to them boy, yo. Yo, you see in the kingdom, you know see my mansion right there, sir. You know see my car, yeah man, you know see it, you know? Yo, Christian Corey, now look on them now. Them outside of the gate and them can't come in. We eat everlasting fruit. No more pain, no more hunger. Just riches and wealth and good life and living. But because you don't keep the commandments of the Most High, you're outside of the gate now and you can't come in here.
Deacon, only 12 tribes in the kingdom.
We the top, thank the Father for the prophets. Know the nation steady waiting for the day that we would drop. All these nations gotta pay for what they did to Yasha all. Maybe we could wait the people take this thing out to the block. We the new gold. I bet they knew that when they took you to your new home. That we the princes of the power, cause we wrestle with these spirits and we come out on top. This with that black and brown masquerade. God, we amazing and I'm not a mason, but the bricks is laid up in arrangement. Yep, young black in my backpack, dangerous, mixing in some flavor with these scriptures, now we baking. Took too long for reparations and restoration. All black everything from start to revelation. Snatching masters from the masses, this is battle rap. Taking all them patents back and bringing blackness back. Imagine Tulsa 23, who land we building on? Why you plotting, keep the milk at home? Why you bopping, keep your slippers on? That's how we do on my side. Keep it in the family and you know we keep it in the tribe. Yahweh on my side, we a bunch of young kings trying to let the spirit guide. Keep it in the tribe. Yahweh on my side, we a bunch of young kings trying to let the spirit guide. Keep it in the tribe. Yahweh on my side, we a bunch of young kings trying to let the spirit guide. Keep it in the tribe. Yahweh on my side, we a bunch of young kings trying to let the spirit guide. Trying to let the spirit guide. How you waiting on that same man that changed you to raise you? That's like waiting on that coach that never played you to play you. The only thing to do is play you. They used to call a fire truck to spray you. Now they playing music on your radio. Your ops pull up the spray. Playing that same music, them artists ain't getting paid to do. Now you bought a chain, you shining, hop out the rain. Some brothers pull up in vain, they dropping, snatching your chain, dude. Did we ever break free from the slavery? Too many lives lost, too many laid them seas. They put insurance on my brother, see the dotted lines. You lose your soul when you sign, gotta keep it in the tribe. Yahweh on my side, we a bunch of young kings trying to let the spirit guide. Keep it in the tribe. Yahweh on my side, we a bunch of young kings trying to let the spirit guide. Keep it in the tribe. Yahweh on my side. We a bunch of young kings trying to let the spirit guide. Keep it in the tribe. Yahweh on my side. We a bunch of young kings trying to let the spirit guide. Let the spirit guide. We the top. Thank the Father for the prophets. Know the nation steady waiting for the day that we would drop. All these nations gotta pay for what they did to Yasha all. Maybe we could wait the people take this thing out to the block. Get some signs, get a spot. We aligning with my pops. We the only people crying that the violence need to stop. Taking brothers out the hood, now we shining on your block. Many only thing can stop us is my God. Keep it in the tribe. Yahweh on the side. We a bunch of young kings trying to let the spirit guide. Keep it in the tribe. Yahweh on my side. We a bunch of young kings trying to let the spirit guide. Let the spirit guide.
Taking the kingdom soon, 1 hour, 0 minutes.
You. Okay, hold on a second. All right. All right, y'all. Put a 7 in the chat if you can hear me. Yo. Shalom, shalom. All right, cool. Cool. All right, bet. Well, shalom to everybody. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, how about you know, shot Barker Thumb? Hey, y'all in the building. What's up, King? Well, we're here 1 more week. You know what I'm saying? I'm alone, but it's all good. Knock is on his way to North Carolina. You know, we got Passover coming up. So shout out to everybody that did it already. Shout out to everybody that's got it coming up. Shout out to us if you come into ours. Once again, real quick, I guess even though I ain't used to this, I'll go ahead and do Knox part. So the Anointed House of Saints will be presenting another Passover, right? 2026. This time, this year, this Wednesday, it will be at the AHOS headquarters school, Greensboro, North Carolina. So if you want tickets, you know what I'm saying, you want to go ahead and get that done. Want to find out exactly where it's going to be at. You want to get any information about us, period. Go to www.anointedhouseofsaints.com. Is it? Yeah. Okay. But yeah. So make sure that y'all go ahead and do that. We'll see you guys at the feast. Man, that feel weird. All right, cool. Now we back. So let's get into what we got going on today. Shout out to everybody that's in the building now that will be in the building later on. Y'all know me, I'm not knock. I don't like to take too much time doing all the shout outs, but shout out to each and every one of y'all. For real, for real. Love you and appreciate the support, the continued support. If you will, please like the video and share it, because I saw already that YouTube ain't rocking with us right now on the algorithm and stuff like that. They I couldn't even find a video. I had to type in the name for the like the school and stuff like that. So if you're not on my social media, you're not gonna see it. So yeah, send it out to people. What this class is going to be is another breakdown of the Peloponnesian War. Not as deep as it was before, not as long rather, hopefully. But what this one's going to be is a little bit more information that I found out that I wanted to elaborate on. Okay. There were some things before as far as who was Judah, who was Dan, that I was trying to distinguish besides the Dorians and the Danites and the Lacedaemonians. But we basically found out the answers today, exactly as to who was who. Even the Edomites, right? Got more insight on Macedon and when they took that over. So me and Panah had made a statement about the Argead dynasty, which is the Macedonian dynasty. It said that the name Argead is a name that the Danites gave to Macedon. That was research that I did. It is false. So I want to make that correction first and foremost, right? The fact of the matter is, Argead is a name that they made up. Alexander and his, well, not Alexander, but his great grandfather, great grandfather, one of them, right? Perdiccas. So we're going to talk about him because he's going to pop up in this video that we're going to watch about the Peloponnesian War. This is the same video that I made before, but Perdiccas, in the timeline that he's associated with becoming the first official king of Macedon, is literally the timeline I gave you guys 2 weeks ago when we did the lesson on Greece and Dan, and showing how the Edomites got to Macedon in the time period and all that type of stuff, right? So today we're gonna get into the Peloponnesian War. Just to give you guys a little bit of insight on it before we play this video, so that everything doesn't sound like Chinese. Because I know a lot of y'all don't care about history. A lot of you don't look into it, don't know what I'm talking about, even though we did a video about it. So we're going to recap a little bit with our good, trusty friend, ChatGPT, right? And at the end of this, I'm also going to give you guys some sources, because we know how to use ChatGPT and we know how to ask it for sources. So you guys will be able to go and look this stuff up yourself with actual books and articles and everything that everybody made that explains the information that I'm going to present today. All right. So, the Peloponnesian War and the conflict wasn't framed as a Doric versus Ionian officially, meaning in the history books of the mainstream Historia, but culturally and politically, that's basically what it turned into, right? And the reason it says this is because of the question I asked. You feel me? But that's because I know what the situation is with the Peloponnesian War. I just wanted to give me some answers so that I could show you guys a breakdown, right? Now, so when you ask which Spartan/Doric groups fought against Ionia, Athens, here's the real breakdown. The reason I asked this is because first thing that we're going to distinguish is the difference between the two groups, right? Sparta, which is the Danites, right? And a couple of Judites, but a lot of the Peloponnese, which is why they were the Peloponnesian League, right? Japhet. is rocking with Dan at this time. And then there's Persians rocking with Judah, who's got a little bit of Japhet in like a subordinate state, if you will. And we're also going to see them revolt, or at least try to, right? With Judah running Athens after we defeat Persia and push them further into Anatolia or Turkey, right? So this is, and when I say we, I'm talking about Dan, because you know I'm Dan, Big Dan the man. Right here. So, but that's the deal. We're gonna kind of go into it, but that's the reason why I asked this question about who was fighting on the Doric side and who was fighting on the Ionian side, or the Athens side, Athenian, right? So, core leader Sparta, Lacedaemon, right? Lacedaemon. And again, if this is a name that looks familiar to you, it should, because it's in your Bible as the group that was found to be kin while Alexander was, ruling this exact place that we're talking about right now. So, Sparta, Lacedaemon, right, or the Danites. This is the people who the Danans and the Dorians, became the Spartans, right? The dominant Doric military power led the Peloponnesian League. They called it the Peloponnesian League because they had a lot of the Peloponnesian people in it. And prior to this, they took over the Peloponnese and Japhet through the Doric invasion or Dorian invasions, right? So this is why their name was Peloponnesian League. Major Doric allies. First one you're going to see on the list is Corinth, right? Notice the Spartan-like helmet that they had, because they were a mixed breed, basically, if you will. Spartans or Judites and Danites and Athenians, Judites, primarily Judites though. And they were, because of their maritime ties to Dan, they were Judites that sailed very, very well. Okay. These are the same people that were in the church of Corinth that we read about in the New Testament. All right. These are your Israelites. So there's also a group of, Peloponnesian people or Polynesian or Samoans that are grouped in with these people, right? They're a little bit to the north in the this is their mother state, but they have other little smaller city states that's also going to be talked about in the video that I'll elaborate on at that time. So, but Corinth is very important because due to them being primarily Judah, right? They jump on the Doric side for a political reason, which we'll talk about, which basically spelled the end of the war for Athens, which is why Dan ended up being the controllers of the Greek world and not Judah, right? Primarily. This is how Dan gets their, first taste of the lion's whelp, if you will, right? After they leaped from Bashan. So, Corinth, a Doric powerhouse, had major naval strength, one of the main instigators of the war against Athens, and we'll explain why. Megara, right? Megara, a Doric city caught between Athens and Sparta. Conflict with Athens, Megaran decree helped spark the war, which we'll also talk about in the video. Boeotian League, Thebes as the leader, right? Thebes is Israelites. They had their own different separate league. It wasn't purely Doric because they are also Judah, right? But politically aligned with Sparta. So their political alignment is the same thing as what happened with Corinth, right? Only their political alignment was done and drawn in the sand before the war started, which is why it's spelled out this way. But this is also Israelites, right? Tied in with Dan, right? Which is also Israelites, but it's Israelites from the southern kingdom tied in with the northern kingdom who came at a, previous time period, as we've talked about before in the last 2 weeks, right? So extremely powerful land army because they're Judah. Later defeats Sparta after the war. Exactly. So, because Athens. Elise controlled Olympia. Initially allied with Sparta, later tensions arise. And you got to remember, Sparta is where, not Sparta, but Athens is where you get your, my bad. Athens is where you're going to get the, what are they called? I just lost them when I hit the mic. Black boule, right? The original boule comes from Athens during this exact time period. There's no new thing under the sun. The reason America had the boule be black in America is because they know the boule was black in Greece. Same thing, right? Same people with the same damn task. So that's just that. So they were running Elise, and we're going to prove it a little bit later too with some busts and some statues of their king at this time. Ooh, good old ginger ale. All right, so Elise controlled Olympia. Elise is very important. Um, Olympia is very important. Olympia is the place where the Spartan gods or the gods of the Peloponnese would be at, right? Olympia, Mount Olympus, as you have heard it be called, right? Other Peloponnesian states, Argos, right? Complex, but sometimes neutral in the anti-Spartan despite Doric roots, and they definitely were, even at a time, they switched over to Athens, which we'll also talk about. Mantinea, and then Sicyon, I think is how you say it, or Sicyon. So these are mostly Doric or Peloponnesian mainland powers under Spartan influence. Now, the Ionian side, watch this. Basically, Spartan, Athens. I keep saying Spartan. Basically, Athens was the only Ionian, attribute and counterpart. Then they had states that the Delian League had that were involved with them, and then places that were under like Athenian control, right? So you got Athens as the Ionian leader, and then Ionian cities of the Aegean, which is Chios, Lesbos, Samos, and all them Peloponnesian places that the people you now call Samoans and Melanesians and Polynesians owned back in the day, right? And then Maritime Empire, which was then called the Delian League, right? This is Athens. And we're going to see, even during this war, Athens and Sparta are going to cause certain truce with each other because they just don't want to really fight, right? But when it comes to Athens taking on them Japhetite places, they going to knock them down. When Dan has a chance to take on Macedonia, because as I showed you by the 400s, the white people had already moved into Macedon from the north, and we're going to show some sources about that too. But we end up fighting them, and then we draw a truce with them, and then they break a treaty, right? Something they're used to doing, and run up to the north and leave us to fend for ourselves against Judah. So these are all things, once again, we're going to talk about. I'm going to spell it out for you. So key insight, import for your bigger theory. The war reflects a deep cultural split. Doric equals land-based, militaristic, oligarchic, right? Spartans. Ionian, naval, commercial, democratic, right? So this is Judah, but it's Judah with a lot of the freaking Peloponnesian people. This is how the naval army gets started, right? They've got the democratic thing going on because they had to be democratic due to them being the people that took over the people who ran the land, which was Japhet, right? We took them over, which is why a lot of their people were with us, but they were the ones that happened to take over all the mainland cities due to their takeover of Athens, which we've talked about in the past, right? When we did this first lesson. So, yeah, Doric versus Ionian. And they have the Doric labeled as landlocked because the Spartans were basically, known for their land fighting, not for their maritime war capability and stuff like that, even though they could sail pretty well too. So, even though not every ally was pure Doric, right? As I just said, the Spartan coalition was dominated by Doric identity and Peloponnesian power structures because Japhet was helping both sides. They were split. And then you got the Persians who also jumped on Athens' side, but didn't really help them too much, like Esau. So, bottom line, the main Spartan Doric groups that fought against Ionian Athens were Sparta, Corinth, Megara, Thebes, Elis, and other Peloponnesian cities. So that's that. Wanted to break that down for you. So those of you that could follow it understood what that was and what it was saying. So let's get into it. Yeah, I knew it wasn't going to be too many people watching the video, but it's all good.
The Peloponnesian Wars are perhaps the most famous instances of geopolitical conflict in the history of the Mediterranean. The titanic clash between Athens, an ascending power, and Sparta, an established hegemony.
Why'd you say Bluetooth, Azariah? Can you not hear me or something? Oh, Yakamiya, where does this connect in the scripts? Well, there's a lot of connections in the scripts, but that's not what the class is about today because it would take me too much time. But you got the Judges 5, you got the Ezekiel 27, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of different things we could talk about, but the scripts also don't go into the Peloponnesian War. So this is just history I'm giving them to be able to prove what I've taught the last 2 weeks in them videos that you still got to watch. You feel me? So, yeah. But I will continue.
Is well recorded by Thucydides and later authors, and has produced much discussion amongst classicist, philosopher, and political science.
This is a purely historic video based on because of some classes me and Panay are gonna be putting together, as I told y'all before, just in case anybody forgot. So we're doing some collaborative classes soon. I had to put out another Peloponnesian lesson so that it'd be proof that I said some things that we're gonna say when we're on class. So that's what this is, right? If you can't follow it, you missed the last couple videos I did on it, which is your fault, not mine. So it is what it is. If y'all don't like it, I don't care. I'm teaching the lesson because there are people that want to know this stuff and they want to follow it. And that's basically what this is for. So they can watch it later if y'all don't watch it now. So yeah.
Scientist circles. Such a large conflict is almost impossible to discuss in all of its granular details fully. For its prelude and aftermath are almost as sizable and complicated as the war itself. In our Peloponnesian War
even
video,
the crack is telling you this is a very complicated subject, right? But I'm trying to make it uncomplicated for you guys. The thing is, you're not gonna understand, what exactly is going on if you haven't seen what we talked about before or understood how we were saying Dan got to the land, right? How we're saying Judah got to the land. If you don't understand any of those things, you feel what I'm saying? In fact, real quick, let me see if I could do this one time for the one time. Let me pull this up right quick on PowerPoint. All right. Let's do this one time real quick, real fast. So, that's small. All right. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. All right. All right, cool. Yeah. All right. So, can't zoom in too much on these. It don't really work like that. But, all right. So, Danite migration, alternative historical breakdown, right? And so the tribe of Dan was a seafaring tribe that lived as true nomads. They constantly traveled via sea, but also were great on land as well, right? We talk about them taking Laish, which is in the Bible, right? Their migration as the Danans and the Dinian and all that stuff, right? Ezekiel 48, the Judges 5, Ezekiel 27. There's a bunch of scriptures that line up to this. Joshua 19. There's a bunch of things you got to go back to see if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's because there's videos that we did where I went over this whole PowerPoint at least 13 times and people missed it. And then Panade videos and people don't understand it because the foundation of the videos and the history is in these PowerPoints, right? Milesians, which is the first Judite city that was taken over in Argos and stuff like that. It's before you even get to the actual islands in the Aegean, right? So it's landlocked near Turkey and Ephesus, another place in the Bible, right? Milesians were the final race to settle in Ireland. They're also the people that moved over there, right? They're the descendants of Eber, Finn, and Aramon, who were people that moved from Greece to Ireland, right? So this is history, mythos, right? All stuff that we've proved before. So these are things that, again, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, it's because you missed a lot of stuff that I talked about. So you got to go back and watch, right? This is all historically documented information on how they migrated from Israel and Egypt into the Peloponnese, right? 480, 490 BC, 338 BC, right? The Peloponnesian War, which we're talking about today. You know what I'm saying? This is all stuff important to understanding how Dan and the Southern Kingdom were Peloponnesian Greeks, right? The reason this is important for the scriptures is because the reason there's no difference between Jew nor Greek in the New Testament is because they're literally the same people. Jews and Greeks are Israelites. So I'm showing you guys this PowerPoint because once again, I did classes on this PowerPoint where I showed you guys history, and there's sources to the PowerPoint where we clicked things and saw the videos. We even went as far as the Gaelic migrations and how Gaelic and Manx are similar to the Hebrew language, which Panah has also proven with other books separate from the sources I have here, right? We talked about their defeat of Rome and their takeover of Rome and Dan's takeover of Scandinavia and their travel through Germany, Rome, Scotland. We saw Judah move to England, Scotland, Wales, and then Germany themselves, and also Russia and Prussia and all them other places, right? So, like, I proved all this stuff, showed you guys how there were black Vikings from these places, right? Got names like Black Man in Buckinghamshire and Black Man in Stuartingus, like Stuart, which is King James people last name, Black Menace, and Lincoln. So yeah, this is all stuff historically documented that also, we brought biblical accounts to it that matched it, right? We got the history with Alexander and everything like that, Jerome and Constantine, and how all these people match up with Judah, Benjamin, Levi. We got black pictures of these people and their descendants in those places I was just talking about in Europe, right? So this was a lesson, multiple lessons that we did where I showed you guys all of these people and these things, right? So again, if y'all don't know, it's because you got to go back and watch it. So, all right. Now, back to the complicated stuff. Let me pull this back up one time. All right. So we did the little breakdown of the Dorian invasion. Let's watch the video.
We will discuss various battles of the war and how politics in Hellas changed over time. In this long-form video, we will both coalesce all the episodes into one large narrative and also add a few battles and descriptions and make corrections to ensure our story is as accurate as possible. Welcome to our video on the entire Peloponnesian Wars, their battles and their politics. The ancient Greek world, after the battles of Plataea and Mycale in 479 BCE, where the Persian Empire was soundly...
And I'll say this too before we let this go. Any elders saying that this stuff doesn't make sense, I will step out on a limb and say it's because they're not historically sound people, right? The PowerPoint I showed and other PowerPoints I've done and the stuff that Panah showed and the books that he did and the last two videos we did off of Panah's books and stuff like that he showed, and the ChatGPT stuff that I have and the stuff that we're going to show today, they'd have to disprove all of that to say we don't know what we're talking about, right? Just like when y'all used to watch the little debates with them dudes that got the Christian camp now, y'all used to be happy when they would make people have to prove things, and then when they wouldn't prove things, y'all would say they won the debate, right? This is like the same thing. If they want to say we're wrong about the stuff we're saying, they have to come with a way to prove what we're saying is wrong. Show us that the Danaans aren't the Greeks and that these aren't the Danites, and disprove the history that these crackers found before we found it, right? Because it's books, not just a theory that we came up with that Eliel did 2 years. That Eliel just put out his behind 2 years ago. No, this is a historically found theory, right? Just like all the rest of the hypotheses that y'all take. You feel me? And so none of y'all was there for slavery, but you believe it because there's books that document it. So if there's books that document Israelites leaving Egypt and going to the Aegean and then going back to Israel, being numbered with the Israelites as the tribe of Dan, and then going back to the Aegean and then traveling back and forth after they don't get enough land, after being given Joppa and then still in Laish and all this other stuff, which is all in the Bible, right? Like, they have to disprove the connections that not just me, Panah, Yawasop, and Ariala found, but also like people that have nothing to do with us and Israelites that are historians from a long time ago that found the same stuff, right? Including this guy. So, and this is a world-renowned historical channel, right? For those of you that don't know, we're watching Kings and Generals, right? the number one historical YouTube channel on YouTube. You feel me? So, yeah. And just the same video I showed you last time. We're just elaborating it on. So, check it out.
Defeated, was a very different place than the one before the invasions. The various city-states of the Hellenic mainland had adopted many tactics to survive the Persian onslaught, from fighting to fleeing to Medizing, which meant submitting. Sparta, a traditional hegemon, had stood defiant against Persia.
All right, now, just so you understand the breakdown.
A fact for which many city-states were...
let me move this closed caption. All right, bet. So, you got Crete down here. It's purple because it's neutral, okay? You got Argos, and you got, which is green, right? You got the Achaemenid Empire, which is Persian Mede, okay? So these are the people that was running this place, right? Before the Peloponnesian War. Sparta whoops they behind, Dan, right? They become the leaders of Hellas once again. So they had the Dorian invasion, then the Persians and Medes come in and take them over, right? And then they take out the Persians and Medes. They move out to Anatolia and Turkey. This is how it becomes Persian primarily today, because this is where they stayed. You understand? Alexander didn't put them there. They was already there when Alexander came on the scene. Alexander didn't move people from place to place. He just took over due to the hegemony of the land already, due to what the Persians and Medes brought, right? So you've got the Delian League, which is blue because it's full of Samoans and Peloponnesians and Japhetites, right? They also have these islands here, which we're going to talk about later on because they're going to take them from the Achaemenid dynasty, okay? And these are also Japhetite places, right? Including Argos, which is a place that's connected to Israel, to Dan, rather, right? You got Macedon, who's a different color because they are not Israelites. You got Thrace, who's the same color as Sparta and their allies down here, because this is Dan too, right? So I want you guys to understand, they got the colors mapped out because they know who's who already, all right? The green is for the places that was run by Persia, okay? So they got Thessaly, they got Anatolia, they got the Achaemenid dynasty, they got all these places over here. Samos, Miletus, Ephesus, right? All these places here that are also connected in the Bible, okay? And then you got Corinth over here, and then you got Sparta, you got Tarshish, all them places, right? So you got the Delian League, which is like your regular Greek islands. This is the Japhetites. You feel me? They're locked in with Athens, who is right here, also in big blue. Okay, so that's the breakdown. You got the brown, which is neutral. Yellow is also neutral, but it's a different type of neutral, which we'll break down later, right? And Pontus, which is also, Danite. So that's the breakdown. So the blue is Judah. Blue's gonna be over here too sooner. Crete gonna stay, neutral. Macedon is pink because we're gonna see them come in not neutral, but neither one of the groups to prove that they're already a different people at this time, right? And I'm gonna show you some history to prove that as well. So this is the Edomites and Thrace up here at the top, right? Which is not where they came from. They come from here, okay? And yeah, we got Spartan control up here in Thrace. So let's continue now that y'all hopefully understand the breakdown.
Thankful. Meanwhile, another up-and-coming city-state with a massive and imposing navy was gaining momentum. This city-state was Athens, which before the Persian invasion had been a marginal player in the Greek world with much political instability. Although Athens and Sparta had both played key roles in defeating Persia, they soon came to loggerheads over what to do after the King of Kings had been repulsed. Sparta, traditionally conservative in its foreign policy and content with its Peloponnesian sphere of influence, did not wish to fight further.
So Sparta was cool with its influence in the Peloponnese, it didn't need nothing bigger. But remember, Judah is now in Athens. Judah's not used to having a small say-so in no land it's in because it's Judah, right? So they're going to try to make they say-so bigger by starting a league and then becoming the leader of that league and then starting a war with Sparta to see who going to be the leader of the Greek world, in which they lost. But, yeah.
Athens, emboldened by its new victories, wished to take the fight to the Hellespont and Asia Minor, claiming to be a liberator to the Hellenic city-states there, still under Persian rule.
So this is how they start to begin to take these cities. They start with Abydos, right? They're trying to say that they're going to be the Hellenic, which again, Hellenic is Israelite, right? As we know, as we've seen, as we've proven. Why aren't they calling themselves Peloponnese? The reason it's called Hellos and it's Hellenic is because everybody in control here is Israelite. Either Judah, Benjamin, Levi, or Dan. That's it. So it's all Hellenic, right? All of their allies, all of their enemies, Hellas and Hellenic, because they're all Greek. They're all Israelite, right? No difference between Jew nor Greek. Why? Because they're the same.
As a result, in 478 BCE, the so-called Delian League of Cities was formed, with Athens at its head. This league was meant to continue fighting and liberating Greek cities, and their military expenditure would be covered through a common fund on its titular island of Delos. The expansion of this alliance, its gradual morphing into an Athenian empire, and the anxiety it caused among the elites of Sparta were important drivers of the war.
So Judah pops up in the land. They go to Miletus. They take over Ephesus. They're in Smyrna, right? These are all places you hear about in the Bible now. We've proven in the first lesson when they start taking over these places, starting with Big Miletus. This is the first place Judah got rich in the Peloponnese. Then they move. They start moving, right? This is why the founders of Scotland and everything come from Miletus, because this was the place where they was like, they was at. They start moving, start building influence. Eventually, let's go to Athens, right? They make them a big player. And now they're trying to make them even bigger by creating their own little league and sphere of influence. That's going to eventually start to mirror Sparta. As they just told you, Sparta begins to become a little bit worried about their sphere of influence fading away, and this new group having a sphere that's like very much growing and quickly, right? So, and you can see Argos, Corinth, Thebes, right? They're all red. Delphi, Thessaly is green because it's like neutral, but it's under their command, right? And you got Macedon, Epirus, you got Olynthus, which is similar to Olympus, and Macedon has taken that over. This is Esau already here. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
In response to growing Athenian influence, the Peloponnesian League was founded in 550 BCE under the Spartan purview, and was essentially a means for Peloponnesian states to stay under Spartan influence.
So they make the Delian League, Judah makes Delian League, Sparta copies and makes the Peloponnesian League, right? And again, they call it Peloponnesian League to try to keep their sphere of influence on these places that are Peloponnesian, because all of their brothers are switching and turning to blue, as you see, right? Was a little bit of blue, now it's a lot of blue, and it's more blue than it is red. So that's the deal. All the rest of the red is up here, and that's far. So they got to think of some things, right? That's how it works.
These alliances, much like NATO and the Warsaw Pact during the Cold War, created a delicate balance of power, but many members within each would rebel and try to switch sides during the war itself.
Again, many would rebel and try to switch sides during the war itself. So Corinth is already red because they just put them in history as a group that, is on Sparta's side. Though they're on Sparta's side, they are related to the Delian League. They're related to Judah. This is Judah here in Corinth. They just cool with Sparta. They real tight. They fight together. They fought real hard together against the Persians and the Medes. So they became real close because Corinth had a lot of the maritime people. They dealt with, it was the church in Corinth, not the churches in Corinth, because the majority of the people in Corinth were Peloponnese. They were Japhet. But then there's that Judite group that moves over there, and they end up sailing just like them people. But the reason they were primarily the maritime ally of the Israelites from Athens is because they were basically grouped in and mixed in with people that were literally, the other people, Japhet, Samo, right? So that's how that goes. And as they said, a lot of people started switching during the middle of the war, which is how Sparta's going to end up winning, even though they're a lot smaller in size and, number.
In the Prelude to War, described by Thucydides as Archaeologia and Pentacontetia, a noteworthy event was the construction of the Long Walls in Athens in 479 BCE, which drew nervous eyes from Sparta, who looked upon the constructions of a more fortified, militant Athens with trepidation. Themistocles, of Battle of Salamis fame, was sent as an ambassador to Sparta to sort out their differences. Themistocles managed to delay Spartan diplomatic overtures long enough for Athens to begin construction of the walls, and Piraeus, Athens' harbour, was finally linked to the city proper via the Long Walls. Compounding onto this, another moment when Athens humiliated Sparta was the Helot revolt in Messenia. The Helots, the slaves of the Spartan state, were
even so, we're Hellenes, we called the slaves Helots. The Hellenist Israelites, or Hellene, called the slaves Helots. It's like Goy from Hellos. You understand? Bruh. It's crazy.
Fed up with their particularly cruel treatment under the Spartan regime and revolted. Athens offered to help Sparta quell this revolt, but was rebuked by the proud warrior city-state.
Why use the word rebuke? That's funny. But so Athens tries to not have fights with Sparta at the beginning, and you're going to see a lot of this too, right? Them and Sparta do a lot of treaties where they agree not to fight each other, because even though in history, mainstream history anyway, they try to make it seem like these people were always enemies. According to actual history, they weren't. They were friends. They always acted like brothers the whole time, till it was time they had to fight. Sometimes they'd almost get into a fight, and then they would ask each other, yo, we really fighting? And then they would stop fighting. You're going to see. And then a lot of times, they end up fighting each other. The reason the war was lost by Athens is because they started fighting their own groups. It wasn't even the Spartans fighting them and stuff. It was them fighting each other. So that's literally because we wasn't doing enough fighting against them. It wasn't treaties. We kept them. That's how it worked.
Eventually, Athens was allowed to help with sieges, because Sparta was only good with hoplite warfare. In the following decades, Athens' political and military prestige continued to grow as they fought campaigns in the Hellespont.
So look, now at this point, Athens then took over all these places again. So now they're not under the rule of the Persians, and it's going to explain how that happens and stuff like that, right? So you see the blue flag on Ephesus, blue flag on Miletus, blue flag on Cyrene, blue flag on Ios, or Assos, right? Which is Samo, Halocrasis, Samos, which is Samoan, Erythrae, Chios, Melithene, or Melithene, however you say it, Asios, Abydos, Lampinescus, and Cyziscus. So, and then of course, Samothrace, right? Because you got Thrace, which is ours, and then you got Samothrace, which is their little island, because they used to have Thrace, but we took Thrace over, so they made that island Samothrace, because the Samoans is prideful too, right? We're going to get into how the Samoans and the Melanesians and all them people is these folks, because I done tracked the migration now. Shout out to ChatGPT. But, yeah, well, lesson for another time.
Ionia and Asia Minor. Major campaigns even took place in 460 BCE in Egypt, though they were largely failures with many losses for the Delians. One particular battle in Cyprus in 451 BCE saw an Athenian victory, but the death of the Athenian commander Cimon. Soon, the vibrant Athenian democracy, with its constantly changing factions, had begun to assert itself as the uncontested top dog within its alliance. The treasury.
So Judah basically wins in Athens, and they take over all the Samoan places, right? All the Japhetite places, and Japhet loses again their sphere of influence of their own land, right?
Of the Delian League, previously located in the sanctuary in Delos, was moved to Athens in 454 or 453 BCE. These newfound funds, which were meant to support all the League cities equally, were used for public works in Athens itself, much to the dismay of Athens's allies. In fact, in 451 or 450 BCE, Erythi, a city in Ionia, revolted against Athens, and many allies refused to pay tribute. Nevertheless, Athens's power was not dented. This was in part due to the fact that the funds seized from Delos also assisted with the development of the Athenian navy. Athens continued to export its naval power abroad until the Peace of Callias, which exchanged Cyprus for an Asia Minor free from Persian control.
So now you see, they do a little treaty, a little, deal basically with Persians and Medes, and now Judah's got control over all of this stuff. Now everything here is back in Israelite control, right? And you see we get Byzantium blue, which is why they end up going over and taking over the rest of this stuff to the the west in Europe, and calling it the Byzantine Empire. You feel me? So again, all history that we will tie in again, which we've already done before, but if you paid attention, this is either going to be helping you understand everything we talked before, and if you didn't pay attention, you're going to continue to be lost until you go back and see them other videos. So yeah.
At the same time, Athens continued to expand its influence through the establishment of colonies such as Thurii in Magna Graecia, a traditionally independent part of the Hellenic world under Syracusan hegemony. During Athens,
and then you got another one that sounds like Samoan, Samanites. Y'all gonna understand what
these wars of expansion.
Y'all gonna see who Japhet is soon.
It was also changing at home, as an innovative young politician called Pericles had initiated multiple democratic reforms, initiating measures against the wealthy. Looking towards the sea, a policy can.
Big old Pericles. Real quick before we watch this, because I want to kind of roll through this so I don't keep y'all too long. Those of you that are actually paying attention, right? Pericles. Here, let me show myself again. Wow. Pericles is a nigga. He's black. So where are you? Pericles. So here's the actual documented reality of Pericles' bust based on surviving museum pieces in archaeology. Notice the word surviving. Notice they're all white, but notice this one has no nose. Notice it has no nose. And from this angle, it looks black with no nose, right? Now, when they take the nose off, it's typically a damn near direct identical copy of the bronze one that they had before. They make it all white marble so that you don't see any paint colors, so that you can't distinguish who was who and what was what. And then they break the nose off if it looks too much like a Israelite, right? So that with the curliness of the hair, you can't always tell it's supposed to be woolly, right? And then you got images like this where he looked kind of Persian a little bit. So they leave the nose on there because you can't really tell he's black. And then you got the super white guy, right? So, and you can see the texture in the beard and the hair as far as the curls compared to the original Roman marble is a lot different. You feel me? So looks more beady-beadish. But we'll talk about the color and the depiction and all that type of stuff in a second too, because very, very important. So these are Roman marble copies. Watch the date. Watch the date. 2 AD. This is 2 AD We're talking about a man from 480 BC to like 440, 430 BC, right? So like, you know, oh, the Greek, look, it says these are Roman marble copies of a Greek bronze original by the sculptor Chryselius. And as you see, these two copies don't look like this one. So are they really copies or, whitewashed? But I'll let you guys decide. But it does say it's supposed to be a bronze statue. The originals, not marble and not white, they were bronze statues, now lost. Because why would they want to show you the bronze ones that show you exactly what the people look like, right? They're going to destroy those and just keep the white marble and with the broken nose and stuff. And then make some new ones and tell you they was made in 2 AD and it was made in like 1835. You know what I'm saying? So the originals were not marble. They were bronze statues, now lost. All surviving authentic busts today are white cream marble. Ain't that some crap? Man. And they're all in the British Museum. Damn. So, check this out. Ancient Greek sculptures were originally painted. So, they would have had paint on them. You would have seen some pictures, right? For the Japhetites, they always paint themselves as black, like black. For us, we're made as either black or brown, right? With a little bit of red tint in it, which is why they often painted polychromy in pigments including red, brown, black, and blue, right? Every inscription, even inscriptions of Pericles' bust had red paint traces, right? Because they got the red and the black and the brown all together, right? So the white look today, loss of paint and time, is not the original appearance. So I wanted to show you that. So that y'all can see. This is a black man that we are speaking of here in the Peloponnese. Right? In control of Athens. A black man, right? Not this guy, but a black man, a bronze man, a brown man, right?
Continued by his successors, he invested in the development of a strong navy for the promotion of Athenian trade interests. Many Peloponnesian states fought against Athens, one of which was Aegina in 460 BCE. But the rising naval superpower defeated Aegina, besieging and conquering the city. Soviet historiography has actually called this the First Peloponnesian War due to its role in forging the alliances that followed in the full-scale conflict.
See, this is lit up and this is lit up because the rest of these people were basically out of it.
It began in 460 BCE with the obscure Battle of Oeno, where the Athenians and the Argives banded together in common interests and defeated the Spartans, and then with the Battle of Aegina, where the Athenians defeated 70 ships of Aegina and subjugated it as a tributary. This war happened in conjunction with Delian campaigns in Egypt, which severely strained their resources, but we will focus on the Hellenic mainland. The Battle of Aegina is itself an obscure battle, but set the stage in the on-and-off conflict. The Spartans rallied their allies, while Athens began its goal of extending influence in central Greece. This is due to Athens' strength at sea being balanced out by insecurity in the Attican Peninsula. As the war began, Megara, which was having territorial disputes with Corinth, requested Athenian assistance and temporarily.
So remember, Megara and Corinth are both on the Spartan side at the beginning. On the ChatGPT thing. But you see, this is them having territory disputes because Corinth originally is a Spartan city-state, right? They just switched sides. So
temporarily joined its alliance. This is why in 457 BC
and Megara switches sides, which is why it makes sense for Corinth to stay on this side. Remember, they told you a bunch of different allies switched and moved back and forth the whole time during the war, right? This is the first example of that.
BCE, two major battles occurred almost concurrently. the battles of Tanagra and Onophita. The first battle unfolded because of the conflict between the Phocians and the...
Remember I told you about them fighting each other? So Sparta fight each other, Athens fights each other. That's how the war ends up going away, though.
Doric city-states. Sparta sent 1,500 hoplites with 10,000 allied troops, and then marched into the region to tame Phocia. Athens responded by sending its own force, because, according to Thucydides, they were also afraid of Sparta leading internal forces to overthrow democracy in Athens. Tanagra was chosen as the battleground as the Spartans were worried about going through treacherous territory, or through the sea, which the Athenians controlled. The Athenians had 1,500 Argivi allies and their own contingent coming up to 11,000. We don't know much about the battle, but the Spartans ended up winning, restored control of the Dorian cities from Phocis, and retreated back to the Peloponnese. Athens regrouped, and then, after 2 months, continued on to Onophita. There they fought the Boeotians and defeated them, eventually tearing down the walls of Tanagra and then completing their own long walls.
So basically, for those of y'all that didn't get it, Sparta literally ends up beating them in a war that they have, right? Athens has a bigger group, bigger fighters, right? Bigger army. They've got land and the sea capabilities, right? Dan originally does, but as the Spartans, they're mainly a landlocked type of fight style and everything like that. It's phalanx and all that type of stuff. So this is how they would deal. So, like, yeah, they went to fight in the land. They end up winning that war. This is, again, the beginning of the Peloponnesian War. So this is the start of it. They won the first one. They end up winning the last one.
However, the war in Egypt began to strain resources for Athens, and they ended up starting to lose.
Hold on a second.
Archidamus II, one of the two Spartan kings.
All right, here we go. Now, I want you to watch this part because this is important. And I had pictures of Archidamus, the Spartan king, but they don't have any authentic busk of him, even like brown at all. They don't have any bronze of him either. They're all destroyed and stuff like that. I'll show you guys later the depiction of that stuff because it's under the thing I just showed about Perdiccas and Pericles. So.
If the Spartans provided help, Athens sent 70 triremes into the region, crushing the revolt. In the end, neither Persia nor the Peloponnesian League sent help, dooming the revolt into destruction. After this, Athens was the undisputed hegemonic master of the Delian League. Initially, Pericles was a conservative and restrained foreign policy actor, trying to avoid conflict with Sparta. Archidamus II, one of the two Spartan kings, was also keen to avoid conflict, continuing in the long Spartan tradition.
So both of these supposed to be brothers, not brothers like they're both mom, same dad, same mom stuff, but they both Israelites, right? Red is Dan, blue is Judah.
Of
I already showed you what Pericles looked like, and what they say his original bronze and black patina statues look like that no longer exist, ironically.
And introvert.
And the oldest white marble depiction that they have of him from 2 AD doesn't have a nose, but it's got woolly hair. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of weird.
In fact, in 445.
And then of Archidamus, all of the sculptures of him got a nose. None of them got the hair that the guy had in the little picture he got. They're all like brand new sculptures, and they make him look like a total white guy. That's why I'm not even going to show you all those right now.
5 BCE, the two cities had signed the 30 Years' Peace, dividing ancient Greece into spheres of influence between them. This was important as the years between 460 to 445 BCE are considered to be a sort of Cold War between the two leagues, with Argos allying itself with Athens and Megara with Sparta.
So the thing you got to realize is these two groups, these two men, right? Archidamus and Pericles, they're literally, Judah and Dan, sorry. And they're deciding at first not to fight each other, right? So they have their different groups and stuff like that. They're different armies that are always lined up against each other, but there hasn't really been a real fight yet, if you will, okay? Keep that in mind.
Eventually, this Cold War would heat up, when the expansion of trade interests caused much friction and led to conflict between Athens and the most powerful secondary actor in the Peloponnesian League, Corinth. Corinth was a major naval power with many.
So again, Corinth and Athens used to be friends, used to be allies, used to be brothers. Now Corinth is switched because of political tensions and trade issues. Okay, because they're closer via landlockment to Sparta, so that's probably who they're also dealing most of their trade and stuff like that through. So if Judah comes in and makes it a, democratic republic based off finances and stuff like that, damn near like a capitalistic society, if you will, then their best bet is to go with the people that's going to allow them to make the most money, which is Sparta. So they went ahead and switched, colors, switched sails, and that's how they end up on the Spartan side, even though history makes it seem like they always been that way. This guy's a little bit more honest. So.
Many colonies, which led to many political crises with other cities. One such city was Epidamnus, which saw conflict between oligarchic and democratic factions.
We'll fast forward through that because y'all not going to understand it anyway. Let me see.
Communications with Corinth and pulled down its walls. Potidæa sent ambassadors to both Athens and Sparta, but negotiations broke down as Athens had already sent troops to enforce the ultimatum. The Potidæans instantly revolted and made an alliance with.
Now I'm gonna show you guys this, right? So Athens is sending people up here. This is near Macedon up here, okay? So Esau is in this area. Pay attention.
The cities of the Chalcidici and the Bottiaeans, who joined in the rebellion. They were aided by the Macedonian king Perdiccas, who helped their force.
So there's Pericles and then there's Perdiccas, right? So, or Perdiccas, however you want to say it. This guy, Perdiccas the First, he is Alexander's first ancestor. According to history, he's the father of the Aegean dynasty, or the Argead dynasty of Macedon. My history, as I told you guys at the beginning of the lesson, at the beginning of me doing this whole research in the first Peloponnesian video I did, I told you guys that this guy was probably Dan, right? Due to the name of Macedon. But that's not true. Macedon had its name before this guy came onto the scene, but there wasn't a sole leader. It was different tribes, different factions. It was mixed territory, really, which explains why Esau was even able to move into the land in the first place. So we're about to end the video because I'm not going to play all of this stuff. I only want to show you guys what I need to show y'all because we already did a Peloponnesian War lesson. Just wanted to add some more history to it, right? But I do want to show you guys this stuff. All right, hold on a second. All right. So, who is Perdiccas? Who Perdiccas actually was, right? And then they got a little timeline for you and stuff like that. So, Perdiccas the First is traditionally considered the founder of the Argead dynasty, semi-legendary early periods. Later kings, Perdiccas the Second, the Third, who's the father of Philip, who's the father of Alexander, right? Well, the second, and then Perdiccas the Third is Philip's older brother, and then that's when you get Philip, and then that's when you get Alexander. So, but yeah, they're all part of the same royal line. This dynasty ruled Macedon continuously for centuries. So, where Philip fits in, Philip, Macedon, he's not an outsider. He's a direct member of the Argead dynasty. His father is Armenitis III, and his brother is Perdiccas III, who ruled before him. What actually happened? I don't give a okay, Alexander, great connection. Alexander is Philip's son, as we know. Now watch this. Alternative history ideas come from the ideas that are discussions that focus on whether the Argead kings were truly Greek because they claimed descent from Hercules, which I was right about me talking about that. That's them literally trying to write themselves into the history, which we talked about 2 weeks ago when they got to Macedon, which will explain how they even were able to move there, right? During that time in the 600-700 BC area, right? They were in the 400s now at this time, where Perdiccas is on the scene as the first king of Macedon, first king of the crackers there, right? So they don't get their first official king until 457, 460 BC. You understand? But they start getting to Macedon in the 700s. So it was other people that was in charge of the place. It just wasn't a set ruler that ruled the entire land. They had different tribes, if you would, right? So, but yeah, also, whether the Macedonians themselves were culturally distinct from Southern Greeks, because as I said, a lot of the different tribes, which were Edomite, weren't Greek, because Greeks aren't Edomites, they're Israelites. Questions about propaganda or myth making the royal genealogies. There's definitely propaganda, right? Myth is just their historical version. It's like stories, historical stories for Greek people. But propaganda is what it is. When they made the story up that they come from Argos, or if like Philip's people come from Argos, that was fake because they know that Dan's first place that they founded in the Peloponnese was Argos. So that was them trying to write themselves into the history as people that migrated here early, like Dan did, right? So that they could call themselves Greek, like Dan. However, even alternative historians who change or challenge identity, ethnicity, or propaganda don't claim a violent overthrow of Perdiccas' line by Philip's family. So I want to make sure that Perdiccas and Philip were the same people, right? And it proves that they are. So, here we go. Now, ancient sources. When it comes to Herodotus, right? Main source of Perdiccas tells you that he comes from Argos, right? They entered Macedon and stuff like that. Herodotus did not describe this as the royal dynasty that they got defeated or anything like that. I know that. Okay, great. So it's trying to tell you that they became Macedonian rulers and they're from Argos. But there's other people. This is just Herodotus writing it in because of what they said, right? There's actual history that proves that they don't come from Argos, they come from the north. Instead of a kingdom, Macedon appears to have been a tribal society, not a unified monarchy, right? So first thing you got to understand is Macedon wasn't just one people. It wasn't just Edomites. It was multiple people. The Macedonian tribes were the Oreste, like Canestians, which I told you were related to the Veneti, and the Elamiotes, which is like a mix of the Edomites and Japhetite people, right? And then you got Thracians, which is a lot of us, and the Illyrians, which is mostly Japhet, if not all of them. So these groups had local chieftains, not centralized kingship, controlled different regions of that later became known as Macedon. But we also gonna prove the name Macedon existed before that, just the territory and everything like that, the way it is, didn't become the way it was hegemonically until Alexander's ancestors. So there are hints that local chiefs or minor kings existed in Lower Macedon around the Aegae or the Aegae, right? These were likely absorbed or replaced, not documented in detail. The problem, Macedon had not written history of its own early they didn't write their own history that early. Greek historians only started writing about it after it became important. So they didn't start writing about Macedon until like around the time Perdiccas came about. So that's why you don't see the history of them moving in on the mainstream level. But what likely happened is history reconstructed. Most historians reconstruct something like this. Macedon equals fragmented tribal region, powerful family. The Argives rise in the Aegae, and they unite nearby tribes, expand territory, and establish hereditary kingship. So, let me see. So look, this now. Argives as outside rulers who took control. This view suggests that ruling families of Macedon did not originally come from local population, but instead entered the region from elsewhere, possibly southern Greece or another Balkan zone. Balkan zone is north, right? That's the north. Southern Greece would be Argos, the story for that, which we know is false. It's them adding it in, political grandeur, right? But they became a ruling elite over a mixed population, which we just talked about who the mixed population was. Why people consider this plausible? Macedon before kingship was tribal. The region wasn't unified, and it was made up of groups like Upper Macedonian tribes, ones we read about, Illyrians and the Thracians. So these people literally had their own tribes and stuff like that. They all wouldn't be unified, which is why Esau was able to move in the land anyway. As long as they had space for them, they was able to go and do whatever the hell the other tribes was doing, right? So when centralized kinship appears suddenly, it often points to a dominant clan rising or a group consolidating power. So they probably was over there just bullying everybody, and that's how they ended up taking over Macedon, which allowed them to become the dominant force there and then take over other places once they wrote themselves into the history to make it seem like they were actually Greek, right? Founding stories, watch this, often reflect migration. According to Herodotus, the founders came from Argos. Even if not taken literally, that kind of story often signals memory of movement or intrusion, not necessarily a purely local origin. So it's telling you, literally, even though it says Argos, doesn't mean it's actually Argos that they come from. They really come from the Baltic region because there's proof of that. You understand? So it's telling you these white people don't come from Greece. They're not from there, right? They weren't born there. They come from north of that, and they moved into Macedon while it was split between different tribes, and then basically probably divided and conquered the tribes. You know what I'm saying? Little by little, we're a little bit more aggressive, get them tribes on their side, and then eventually, once they take over Macedon, they try to make themselves Greek. So they need a Greek origin story. Let's lie and say we're from Argos, right? But really, it's just memory of intrusion, which is them. They're the intruders. So, parallels in other regions. Across history, it's common for smaller organized royally to take control over a large population. Examples, watch this. Normans in England, which are Danites, we proved that in that PowerPoint I showed you, and Dorians in part of Greece, the Danites, right? So applying applying that pattern to Macedon, let me see, is not unreasonable. It's crazy how they do that. Macedon originally was a Danite city, and then it becomes, yeah. Anyway, so what this view implies, the Argead may have been a distinct ruling layer. Macedonians' identity could have been blended, local plus incoming elite, and early Macedonian may have been more diverse than later narratives suggest. Because, of course, they're not going to suggest the truth. They want you to think they're all white people. The Argos Greek origin story as political theory. The view focuses less on where they come from and more on why the story was told the way it was. It suggests the Argeads emphasized Greek origins to gain legitimacy and be accepted amongst powerful Greek city-states, right? Why this matters. Macedon was seen as different by Greeks. So if you're the Danites, the Spartans, the Lacedaemonians, right? Or you're Judah, Benjamin, Levi in Athens, and you got Esau up there in Macedon, and y'all are already fighting against each other to see who's going to be the rulers of the world, right? The rulers of the territory. Do you want these Edomites that you know is who they is, like coming down and doing some stuff and messing all that up for one of y'all too? No, you don't. So what they do is they make their own treaties and stuff like that, right? But aside from the mandates and stuff that they have for each other, they literally end up putting themselves in a place where, like, you know, we're going to call the Macedonians different. We're not even going to say that they're the same people as us because they're not. But, you know, yeah, now they're going to be different. So y'all do what y'all do up there. We're going to do what we do down here. And they say, oh, no, you're not. Then when they end up taking over, they add themselves to the origin story, say that they're from Argos too, like Dan, and then tie themselves to the descent of Hercules, right? Who's Samson. So Southern Greeks often viewed Macedonians as semi-barbaric, which is why, what? Alexander's known as Alexander the Barbarian, the Macedonian barbarian. Him and Philip were the barbaric people that went against Athens. It's because they're barbaric. I don't know why it says semi. It just should be barbaric. And then culturally distinct. So claiming descent from Hercules wasn't random. It was strategic. Political beliefs of a Greek identity. If Macedonian king could say, we descended from Argos, we are part of the heroic Greek world, then they could participate in events like the Olympics, form alliances more easily, and justify leadership over Greek states. Because, you know, if you're not one of the Greeks, why would you have leadership over a Greek state when the people that took the leadership, which is Dan, still exist? Can't do that. So you got to be part. That's just the rules they made up. So that's how that goes. Wanted to show you all that so that y'all can see there's not just Edomites in this thing. And the ones that is there, not even supposed to be there. They just moved into the land. You feel what I'm saying? So, all right, we almost done.
Forces move inland to Olynthus. Athens' 30 ships and 1,000 hoplites, under the command of General Archestratus, initially fought Perdiccas, as Archestratus anticipated that the Pontidaeans would immediately comply with the wishes of Athens and increase their tribute.
So Judah brought them there. They fight Perdiccas the Edomite, right, from Macedon. Go ahead.
Meanwhile, Sparta and the Peloponnesian League had made some unofficial guarantees to Potidaea, and Corinth sent 1,600 hoplites and 400 light troops to Potidaea as well, under the command of Aristeus. These were informal volunteers, so as to not violate the 30 Years' Peace. In response, Athens increased its commitment with another 2,000 hoplites and 40 more ships, under the command of Callias. After some fighting against Perdiccas, the combined Athenian forces sailed to Potidaea and landed there alongside 400 cavalry, while the Potidaean and Peloponnesian alliance numbered 1,600 hoplites, 200 light troops, and 400 cavalry.
So just to break it down before we finish, because after this, I'm probably going to call it a night for y'all, right? Because I know most of y'all probably don't understand what the hell going on anyway, even though I broke it down. You got to go back and watch the other video. So, but Aristeus, this is a Danite. Perdiccas, Edomite, from Macedon, Sparta, right here. Macedon, Sparta or Lacedaemon, and then Macedon, right? And then you got this guy over here, Archemistretus, or whatever his name is. He is, I believe, a mix of Judah and Persia, right? So he's up there as a general, and well, Esau about to show his colors like he always does.
Archestratus seized the Macedonian city of Thermae and immediately began a siege of Pydna, with the Athenian reinforcements joining as soon as they arrived. Callias quickly arranged a ceasefire with Perdiccas, as Pericles had instructed him to focus on quashing possible upstart revolts, rather than focus on the Macedonian front. The Athenians were quite happy with this arrangement and concentrated all their forces against Potidaea. 3,000 Athenian hoplites, their allies, and 600 Macedonian cavalry left Pydna and marched to Potidaea, while their 70 ships sailed along the coast. Aristeus had been chosen to command the infantry, and Perdiccas, who had already broken his agreement and abandoned the alliance with Athens, was selected to command the cavalry.
So Esau had a treaty with Athens. He breaks the treaty with Athens, right? Which is Judah, Benjamin, Levi. He goes to go fight with Dan, Aristeus, right? In a fight against Athens. Now watch this.
The anti-Athenian allies split their army in two. The Corinthians and Potidaeans positioned themselves on the isthmus just to the north, while the Chalcidians, Macedonians, and other allies took up arms near Olynthus. Their plan was to trap the Athenians by luring them into the valley towards the isthmus, and then coming up from Olynthus to encircle them. The Athenians managed to outmaneuver them, and sent the Athenian supporting Macedonian cavalry to Olynthus, blocking the reinforcements. The Athenians then attacked the main allied army.
You see that?
The Corinthian wing, under Aristeus, succeeded in routing the Athenian.
But Perdiccas just dipped. Left Aristeus by himself. He's sitting out there fighting two Judite armies, basically. And Esau had a treaty with Athens, then breaks it, and then gets a treaty and decides to help Sparta in a war against Athens, and then retreats without even a scratch. So it's like, yeah, that's the deal. There's no way y'all can tell me they're not who we say they are. So, but all right, man. I ain't really got nothing else too much. I just wanted to kind of show you guys that stuff, show you guys that Esau is indeed still in his history book, as opposed to who they are when they got there. You know what I'm saying? But showing you guys a timeline should help you also understand what the New Testament is actually talking about. It's really us. We the Israelites, right? So y'all got to get that down. Y'all got to start to understand what we're talking about. Get caught up to speed on the videos that we're making. Not just me and my camp, but Ariala, House of Bread, Yawasop, and Panah from Ram Gadar Gabarium. You know what I'm saying? Pay attention to the videos that we putting out because we're the only ones giving out this information. Right? And there's leaders, elders hitting us up for it and stuff like that. But it's like they could have been the ones giving it to us a long time ago. You know? I wouldn't have to do the research. So, but that's it, man. Hope y'all understand. Hope y'all like the video. Share it. If you don't understand, you can hit me on socials or something like that. I'll try to answer the questions for you. But hope y'all enjoy y'all week. Enjoy y'all Passover. If you're not coming to see us, you know what I'm saying? We'll do the little prep stuff like that later on in the week so we could explain to y'all how this goes down. But yeah, man. Hope y'all enjoy it. And we'll catch y'all next week. Shalom.